Welcome friends, I'm Kalani, this is the Ukulele Club channel, and in this video we're looking at singing and strumming together. So if you're somebody who's working on that, this video is for you. You're in the right spot. All right. In this video I'm going to be covering three main concepts, and those are how to simplify either your strumming and or your singing. We're going to be talking about synchronizing, which is something that might happen while you're singing and strumming together, and what to do if that happens, and how to use that. And then we're also going to be talking about successive approximation and why that's an important concept for yourself and also in music education if you're working with students. But right now we're going to assume that you are the student and you are trying to do a better job and make progress with singing and strumming. So let's get into the first idea, the first topic, which is simplification. Now obviously this is not a new idea. It's nothing unique. I didn't think of this, but it's a reminder to simplify. And how can we simplify? I think that's important. That's an important conversation, is what can we simplify? How can we simplify? Of course, now what we could simplify would be the strumming. I think there's a couple simple strums that you want to use. One is the idea of just down strums, and also up strums and down strums in terms of just doubling that up and doing eighth notes. So if this is quarter notes, here's a little song I wrote, right? You could just as easily sound the up strums. Now in this case, I could even, now we're talking rhythm, maybe doing the swing rhythm. Here's a little song I wrote, right? Maybe that's even too much and you want to simplify. If it is simple, I don't know if it's more simple for you to do straight or swing. I don't know. I like swing myself. That's simple for me, but it may not be simple for you. So you need to decide, is it easier for me to just do even eighths? We call this even, right? Or straight eighth notes. Or if you want to just do down strums, don't worry, and then you can match your singing. Be happy. Okay, so that leads us into the second. So that's just strumming, you guys. So simplify your strumming. Even if you're starting off with your goal of, right, which is the reggae strum and kind of a swing, right? So maybe you, or now singing, do 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 do. So I could simplify my singing, of course, and let's take it all the way in one direction to nothing. Simply nothing. Don't sing. But what you can do is you could imagine in your mind's ear, which is, I mean, if you have a mind's eye, you've got to have a mind's ear, right? And a mind nostril, maybe? I don't know. You could imagine it. So I'm gonna start you off, and you just imagine. Slightly different chords. All right. So that's something you can do. Just do the strumming. So in that case, we're focusing on the strumming and we're lightening the load of the singing. And then from there, I would say just hum, and you don't have to hum consistently. You know, if you're getting tripped up, if the singing or the humming or thinking about the vocal part is interrupting your strumming, then just don't do it for a second. Get back on track with the strumming and then continue, and you can start to add in more singing over time. All right. Now I know, again, that's not a new idea. It's not, but let's remember that that's an option. And if you use that process, right, we all know that you can't skip process. Those of you who are process oriented, you know this. There's process for a reason. We're scaffolding skills. We're building skills slowly. We're trying to add If we try to add too much too fast, the thing can just crumble, falls apart. All right, so we need our foundation, and then we can add more on top of it. So you can build your foundation either way. You can either learn the singing part really well, build that up over a simple strum, or you can do your strum and prioritize the strum and then build up the singing, the vocal part. All right, either way. Now let's move on and talk about something that's related to that idea of singing and strumming together, which is our second big idea, and that is the idea of synchronization. Now, synchronization happens naturally when two elements, two different voices come together, right? And they're in unison, they're synchronized. And it doesn't have to be exactly, it could be rhythmic synchronization in this case, or it could be harmonic or tonal, whatever. But what could happen is you're trying to do your strum, remember the change chord. You know, if that happens, if you're vocalizing, if you're singing the melody and your rhythm happens to gravitate towards and synchronize with the strum, or vice versa, if you're playing, here's a little song I wrote, might want to sing it note for note, you know. Either way, if the parts synchronize, what you can do is don't worry, all right? Just let it happen, because, and this will relate to the third thing that I'm going to talk about, but I would say just be aware that synchronizing could happen as you're learning, as you're building your proficiency and your skills, because synchronizing is a natural tendency in music. That's why, you know, when people get together in a group and they play or they sing, they tend to, not always, they tend to synchronize. And actually, the natural process of music making often starts with mimicking, echoing, synchronizing, and then differentiation. We move apart, come back together, and figure it out as we develop the ensemble. But just note for yourself that synchronizing is normal. It's probably going to happen, and just let it happen. And take note. Oh, I keep, you know, singing the melody, but I'm singing the rhythm of the strum, or the opposite, or I'm strumming the melody rhythm, and, you know, just kind of note where that happens, and then maybe you can pinpoint those areas and practice keeping your strum together and work on those little moments where you need to work to separate that synchronization. All right, I hope that makes sense. All right, the third thing we're going to be looking at in this video is more conceptual, but I think it's important as learners and as teachers to keep in mind that also a natural part of music learning is what we call successive approximations or progressive approximations. Now, I like to use the term sound blob to start off. When we're trying to play a piece of music, we're first introduced to a piece of music and we try to emulate it, often what happens is we have a blob of stuff, right? It's kind of like clay. Think about you're molding a clay, you're a sculptor now, and you get a blob of clay, and you have a chord, and you have a melody, you know, and maybe it's, you know, they're in the same room together, but they're not, they haven't made friends yet. They're not buddies. So it's just a blob. La 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 la. All right? And we just have the stuff. It's there. It's in space. It's floating. It's in time. It's all there, coming together. Maybe some extra bits, unexpected things, uninvited guests. But let that be okay, and don't judge yourself for that. That's the part that we need to accept, and help your students accept that you can have a sound blob, and then hopefully it becomes what we could call a, you know, like a music something. A music something. Ba ba ba. And you can play around with it, you know. Dee 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 dee. And then maybe It's like, oh, that's pretty close. And you're like, oh yeah, I think something there. Now it sounds like a thing, right? So you could move from music blob or sound blob to sounds like a thing now. But the point is, that's going to take time. It's successive approximations. And just like, making something on a potter's wheel or molding a sculpting a sculpture, I guess. It's not apparent at first. It's not necessarily apparent what's going to emerge from those elements. But don't be afraid to just let the elements be there and be undefined and be blobby, because we're in the music space, right? We're in the sandbox. That's all we have to do, is be in the sandbox. And then from there, we're creating, we're shaping, we're making our sandcastle, all right? Every sandcastle starts off as a giant mound of sand, right? Probably. I don't know. I'm not a professional sandcastle maker, but you get the point. All right. So that's really it for this video, you guys. Simplification, all right? Simplifying strummings, simplifying your singing, allowing for moments of synchronizing, and just, don't worry about it. Let it happen, and then go back and you can work on those moments. What's happening? Why do I keep singing the rhythm of the strum? Or why do I keep strumming the rhythm of the melody? And you can start to pull those things apart. And one of the ways you can do that is just by simplifying the strum and singing a different rhythm over that, right? And you might want to just do exercises like, try doing a basic strum and singing, a rhythm. Da, dee, 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 dee. And then do the opposite. Bum 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 bum. Whatever. I just made that up. But try it. It's not easy. And thereby you can kind of make a little etude for yourself, exercises, rhythmic exercises. And that will definitely help you when you get into playing other songs. And you want to do stylized strums that are not, and this is the last point I want to make about the strumming thing. When we say simplification, we might want to our goal might be to do a strum like the island strum, which is, I'm going to call it a asymmetrical strum. It's not the same kind of every beat. There are, let's call it beat simple strums, right? So it's either all quarter notes or all eighth notes or all upbeats or whatever it is. And those are the easiest to do, or like rock and roll down, it's still easy because it's all the same thing every beat. But when we get into some of the other strums, it doesn't matter what you call them, but when we get into some of the other strums that are 4 beats long, that's when it becomes more challenging. So don't hesitate to just simplify and do a kind of beat repeat strum. And then lastly, number 3 is prepare to engage in and be in the process of successive approximations, and give yourself and your students the space and the permission and the expectation to be in that successive approximation process. And I think it's great to even talk about that ahead of time. When you start this, it's probably going to sound not how you want it to sound. It's not going to meet your expectations, but playing music, learning music, practicing music is a great way to align our expectations so they're realistic, so we don't feel overwhelmed or sad or paranoid or self-conscious or any of those things that we can often feel, especially when we're practicing music, because often music happens and music practicing happens in a public space where people are hearing us, right? And that's really the difference between music and, let's say, visual art, where everybody can just be working quietly by themselves. So there isn't that sort of public pressure to reach a level of performance that is at a certain standard. But that's okay. We're musicians, we understand that. We're students, we're educators, we've been there, done that. It's okay. So just make sure you convey that message to your students and yourself. And I hope I've conveyed that to you in a way that's useful for you. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to end this video here. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. We'll see you guys in a future video.